Supreme Magus, Web Novel, Chapter 629, Sudden Death Part 1. Kor, the eldritch abomination whose fragments had been implanted inside the goblin tribe, still believed to have drawn the short end of the stick by being bonded to such useless and ugly creatures. On the contrary, she had been quite lucky. The goblins' only strong point was their reproductive ability, so she had an easy time manipulating them at first and then overpowering their feeble minds once she had grown stronger. Assaulting the crystal mine had given her plenty of time and energy to refine a body similar to the original eldritch she had been spawned from. Unlike the other hybrids, she didn't give chase to her mother, due to her vessel's weakness. She had preferred to remain hidden inside the mines all along to build her strength and regain her knowledge. Kor had no trouble avoiding the miners. There were too many unused corridors she could use as havens, and as long as she didn't suck the crystals dry, they would always recover their energy. She was one of the few hybrids still alive in the entire Garland continent. Most of the others had been killed by humans or emperor beasts before reaching their maturity or assimilated by their originals after challenging them. The noise that Lith had heard and Marok pretended to was her slowly digging out a particularly juicy mana crystal to feed upon without being noticed. She had no idea how the humans had found her. Her light manipulation abilities rendered Kor almost invisible, and with all the noise echoing through the tunnels she was as silent as a mouse. Kor wasn't worried, though. Those guys weren't miners. Their disappearance was likely to go unnoticed for days if not ever. Lith cursed his bad luck as several darts from a Tier 1 chaos spell threatened his life. There wasn't enough space to dodge them, and he knew from experience that most barriers would be useless against chaos magic. Lith and Marok blinked in opposite directions in the nick of time. Holes several centimeters deep opened in the wall behind where their vitals had been just a second ago. Kor couldn't use powerful spells without risking to trigger a chain reaction that would make the mine collapse, killing both herself and the humans in the process. Luckily, the Rangers had the same problem, plus they had to take care of the dead weight. Many professors were caught by surprise and remained severely injured. The same happened to their assistants and the soldiers tasked to protect them. The only silver lining was that their enchanted armors had prevented any deadly wound and that Kor was focused on the Rangers. How bad it is? Lith asked while taking the gatekeeper out of his pocket dimension and shrinking it to the size of a short sword. She's magically stronger than you, but her physical strength sucks. Half of her body is still that of a goblin, Solus replied. Kor's appearance was that of a humanoid creature, about 1.6 meters, 5 feet 3 inches, tall, with thin limbs and a head too big for her body. Half of her skin was a yellow so pale to almost be translucent, allowing to see what little of her organs still remained. The other half was a pitch-black gelatinous substance that seemed to constantly move and change its shape like it was a flowing liquid. One second it resembled the slimy skin of a toad, the next one it was full of hair like that of a beast. Let me guess, the black half is a tough client, Lith thought. Solus telepathically nodded while turning into her glove form. The last hybrid they had fought was capable of accessing to strong equipment. In presence of so many witnesses, Lith needed a decent excuse for his awakened skills. Her glove form with its 2 mana crystals shining on the back of the hand fit the bill. She had even changed its design, to give it a more complex look that resembled the artifacts they had seen in the past. Kor sneered when she saw Lith charging forward. The 2 Rangers were the only one unscathed from her sneak attack, so she had been afraid that they might blink away and call for help. Yet at least one of them was saving her the time of a boring chase. She welcomed Lith's arrival with another volley of chaos arrows. The distance was now too short even for blinking, and the magic missiles were so fast to be almost invisible. Lith had gambled on his enhanced speed further boosted by air fusion, hoping it would allow him to reach his opponent before she could cast even more powerful spells, and lost the bet. Kor had started to weave her spells from the moment the 2 Rangers had stared in her direction. Also, she held numerous advantages. By being near a wall filled with protruding crystals, she prevented her enemies from using magic against her, since the slightest mistake would make the mines collapse and kill hundreds. Plus, her position blocked blink, leaving physical attacks as the only mean to harm her. Kor expected to see Lith fall, his body riddled with more holes than Swiss cheese, so she was quite shocked when the impact didn't even slow him down. Instead of open wounds, his chest was filled with what looked like a molten silvery liquid deformed from the impact that was quickly fixing the damage it had received. Another one of the unexpected abilities derived from using orichalcum to forge Master Ra's Skinwalker armor was that, by injecting it with mana, it was possible to amplify both its hardness and its repulsive energy field. Before charging, Lith had covered himself with mana from head to toes, just in case. The mana expenditure to withstand chaos magic had been enormous, but it still beat instant death. Lith performed an upward diagonal slash from right to left, forcing Kor to move from her safe spot to not be cut in half. She ducked while sidestepping on Lith's left, her eyes fixated on the blade infused with darkness magic that passed millimeters away from her face and cut off the extremity of her pointed ears. She had yet to perceive the pain from the injury when Lith's left fist struck her side, one of the parts her body which still belonged to the goblins, with enough strength to lift her from the ground and made her spit out a mouthful of blood. She ignored the pain, grabbing his wrist to cut it open with her claws, only to discover his whole arm was covered by the silvery liquid, turning it into an orichalcum living hammer. Cunning bastard, the sword was just a distraction to hit my weak spot. If he thinks an armor can protect him from my touch, he's in for a surprise. She thought as her grip turned into a vice, sucking his vitality through the enchanted protection. Unfortunately for Kor, she wasn't Lith's first abomination. Under the silver, there wasn't the pink, frail skin of a human, but the black scaly body of a hybrid. Both of them had the ability to prey on the vitality of their opponent, and even if Core was more skilled, Lith's counterflow made hers a hollow victory. The stolen vitality was so scarce that it was barely noticeable. Lith was unable to free his left hand, so he lunged with the gatekeeper at Core's shoulder, which was still made of goblin flesh. Magus, web novel, chapter 630, Sudden Death Part 2. She intercepted the blade with her open palm, letting it pierce through her hand until her fingers closed onto its hilt. Beating an eldritch in a contest of strength, it's a foolish quest. The only question is which one of you will break first, if you or your blade. Core sneered. Lith inwardly cursed as her black blood corroded the gatekeeper's surface and dripped onto the mana crystals embedded in its hilt. Of all the creatures he had faced, Lith had never met one with acid for blood. Lith tried to pull the blade away, but Core was too strong. At the same time, she tried to break his arm, but between his mana boosting the Skinwalker armor and Earth fusion boosting his enhanced physique, it felt to her like moving a mountain. What do you think I'm here for? Marok said from behind her a split second after one of his short swords pierced her chest and another her head. Core had forgotten about the other ranger and that by not having her back against the wall anymore, Blink was a significant threat. By the gods, Marok was shocked seeing that the creature wasn't dying whereas his blades were melting. No vitals, go for the yellow parts, Lith said while exploiting Core's indecision to let go of the gatekeeper and struck with Solas's gauntlet at Core's goblin sternum. Solas had infused herself with all the elements and released a few spells she kept at the ready at the moment of the impact. The resulting effect of the combined attack of Lith, Skinwalker, and Solas was akin to a jackhammer on the snow. The fist pierced through her chest and came out of her back, spraying red, harmless blood all over Marok. Copy that, he replied, starting to stab at the exposed goblin parts so fast that before a wound had enough time to bleed, 4 more had been opened. Core inwardly cursed, trying to find a way out. Hitting her goblin body couldn't kill her since she had no vitals, but the wounds were making her strength plummet. Lith kept hammering her body with his free hand, and when she tried to move him aside with both her hands to escape from Marok's onslaught, Lith grabbed the gatekeeper's hilt. He flooded it with all the mana he could spare, infusing it with darkness magic as he twisted and pulled the blade away. Black blood hit the spot Lith had been until a split second before, making the rocks sizzle while they melted. Feeling her life slipping, Core didn't hesitate to blinking to one of the upper levels of the mines. She kept blinking until she reached the surface, choosing a crystal deposit as her hiding spot. The crystals will help me recover my strength and shield me from an awaken's life vision. I can only hope no one enters the deposit before I'm able to fight back, otherwise I'm screwed, she thought while feeding off the nearby crates. Where did she go? Lith asked Solas while looking around. The crystals surrounding them were jamming his life vision, making it hard for him to even see Marok's energy signature. She might have gone anywhere. The mines are a maze and there are too many interferences, she replied. That thing was a woman too? Weirdest day ever, Marok replied while using quick flicks of his wrists to clean his blades from the black blood. I don't think she will be back anytime soon. By combining our attacks we have given her ugly ass a solid kicking. How's your weapon? Lith stuck his back against the wall to prevent being stabbed in the back while using invigoration on the gatekeeper. The massive flow of darkness magic had already destroyed any trace of the abomination's acid, it was only a matter of assessing the damage. No, was all Lith said. The corroded metal wasn't an issue, but the damaged mana crystals were another story. Too much black blood had soaked them for too long. The pseudo-core had already spent most of its energy to regenerate the damages as fast as it could, but Lith's last darkness burst had been the final straw that broke the camel's back. The gatekeeper was already in critical condition. If he didn't retrieve it, it would have been destroyed, but to do it Lith had been forced to push it beyond its limits. Lith drew a Forgemaster repairing circle so fast that even the professors watching at the process couldn't believe their own eyes. He fought with all of his skill, using his mana as a life support system, but the gatekeeper's pseudo-core slowly faded as the corruption caused by the black blood destroyed its mana circulatory system. It's dead, Lith said after a while. The magic was gone and the crystals had turned dull. The piece of metal in his hands was nothing but scrap. The memories of the enemies they had vanquished together, of all the times he grieved the gatekeeper like it was a lifelong friend. Then he started to worry about his immediate future. Sorry to hear that, man. Hope you have another to spare. Losing your main weapon before even starting a mission is the worst that could happen. Marok was honestly sad. He knew all too well how expensive good equipment was. Floria, Kyla, are you alright? Lith blurted out as soon as the word dead escaped from his lips. In his battle frenzy, he had completely forgotten about his 2 real friends. Replacing the gatekeeper would be hard but feasible. Lith knew that sooner or later he had to upgrade his weapon. A living being, however, couldn't be replaced. The image of Uriel appeared in his mind as life vision was focused to spot the only 2 life forces that held any significance to him in that tunnel. I'm okay, Kyla said, her voice was feeble from fatigue. I was staring at the rude ranger, so I had all the time to drop down the moment I heard the voice. Floria wasn't so lucky, though. More than half of the expedition team was laying on the ground in a puddle of their own blood. The chaos arrows couldn't pierce through the magical protections, but they could still smash bones and rupture organs. Following her duty as a mage knight, Floria had pushed those who were near to her to safety while conjuring a protective shield for herself. Unfortunately, she had never met an abomination capable of using chaos magic. Her spell had been ripped to shreds and she had taken the full force of many arrows at once. If not for all the enchantments Orion had imbued her equipment with, she would have died on the spot. How is she? Lith asked while placing a hand on Floria's shoulder to check her condition with invigoration. Aren't you a healer? The captain is already being treated. You should take care of the wounded, said a woman in her late 50s donning the colors of the Black Griffin. She had been hit on a shoulder, but her assistant was in critical condition.